Hello everyone and welcome to Katharine's Creatures. This should be episode 35. In this series I get to kind of cover and touch base on various mythological beast, beings, and the like pulled from lore worldwide. And today I kind of jumping off the theme of last week and kind of want to differentiate some of the animals we talked about. I want to kind of delve into the kitsune, and this is a creature from Japanese folklore. But before I get into that, I always like to preface by saying that I'm not a linguist, so there is a good chance that I might mispronounce a name or two as I go along. I preface by saying that because I do not intend to insult anybody. I do try my best, but I would just want to make sure you understand there is that possibility. Now, with that said, getting back into Japanese folklore, so the kitsune is a fox entity, and in their lore and their belief system, actually, they thought that all foxes could shapeshift into human forms. That was just generally accepted. Now, the kitsune fox refers to the foxes that develop kind of almost paranormal abilities as they age. And they can be viewed as either tricksters. In some regards, though, they were more often faithful guardians, friends, and even sometimes lovers of humankind. Now, there is a subtype of folklore in particular where the kitsune kind of resonates, and that, here's the pronunciation, let me see, is yokai folklore of Japan. So that's kind of what we're tapping into right now. Now, the kitsune is kind of part of a subcategory of Inari Okami, which again is those foxes of lore. And foxes of the Inari Okami are actually foxes that are associated with fertility, rice, agriculture, industry, so a lot of good things more often than not. Now, the kitsune in particular, again, as they age, they develop wisdom and more tails. And you may have seen the multiple-tailed foxes of Japanese lore. Well, a lot of those are kind of referencing the kitsune. And after 100 years, they can start developing these other tails and can get up to 9 in total. If you have a 9-tailed fox, they are extremely wise, extremely intelligent, extremely powerful, and can again do either really good things or some not so good things. They do have the potential to influence and control humans when they become that 9-tailed fox and become really powerful. And I guess there must have been a worry that kind of developed over time, because by the Edo period of Japan, the foxes were associated as witch animals. So again, kind of malevolent, maybe evil things, and not to be trusted. So they go from this very powerful, positive entity to being something that is kind of has negative connotations over time. Now, going back to the primetime kitsune, again, they have long life. They're associated with being very smart and, of course, magical. They have two different differentiating terms. There's the yako, which are the mischievous, malicious kind of kitsune, versus the zenko, which are the benevolent ones. And kitsune, there's actually a word called Kitsune Tsuki. Hopefully I pronounce it right. Again, trying. Kitsune Tsuki, which is actually the state of being possessed by a fox. So in lore, if someone was, again, being controlled by a kitsune, they would be considered as being under or having the issue of Kitsune Tsuki. And interestingly enough, over time, people just associated this behavior because people actually had this odd behavior associated with being possessed by an animal and under control, that they are out of control, someone else is controlling their life, etc., so on. And only recently did more modern psychiatric medicine dub it as a mental illness. And not only that, it is a culture-based syndrome. So people genuinely believed into creating almost a psychosis of, see if that word's right, of that the truly believed and acted as if they were in possession or being possessed by a fox, if that makes sense. And so the syndrome is very similar, yet also very dissimilar to another culture-bound syndrome, which was clinical lycanthropy, so believing that you can transform into a werewolf. That's for a different place in a different part of the world, but similar concept of a culture believing so much in a lore that certain people developed this syndrome where they genuinely believed and acted and, you know, that they are possessed by a kitsune. Interesting stuff. Now, in the lore, there were different ways you could try to get someone and break them away from the possession, and variations of, I guess, an exorcism, of course. Now, that doesn't always work, but there was different lore pertaining to that. There's actually so much lore about kitsune throughout the eons, not eons, but the centuries, that if you really want to look into this creature, you should. I can't cover all the bases because it would drag on for a while. But when a kitsune, I guess one of the kinds that like to possess a human, are not actually currently in the moment in possession of a human being, they're often seen holding either their tails or some kind of balls, maybe even a gemstone in their mouth. And I guess that's just a visual identification that the animal doesn't currently possess a human. And gemstones, I have the lore of a lot of these kind of spirit-like entities there's a big correlation. So in some lore, if you see a kitsune in and around with a pearl, the pearl sometimes represents its soul. So an external object that is the kitsune soul. Now, modern days, a lot of fantasy really likes to fixate and kind of skip over a lot of that stuff what I was wanting to talk about, and that's why I kind of put that my focus on the other aspects of a kitsune, because modern lore, especially if you are into anime or manga, really like kitsune, the lover style kitsune. So the female wife, the female seductress, the nine-tailed fox, and you'll see that a lot in cinema and TV series, cartoons, anime, manga is the lover style kitsune. But there's so much to the kitsune, I did want to focus actually on some of the other aspects. If you have any questions about this or anything else, post them in the comments below or message me on social media. And until next time, Skull.